The Fire Fist finally returns. The mysterious competitor Lucy claims victory in the Colosseum and acquires the late Ace's Flame fruit. As he reveals his true identity, a fresh chapter begins in the tale of the three brothers.
On the next One Piece, dashing onto the scene, the Chief of Staff of the Revolutionary Army, Sabo. I'm gonna be king of the pirates!
Luffy leaps into action to battle Doflamingo. Seemingly rising from the dead, the despotic ruler carries out a twisted plan to hide the true history of Dressrosa. Spreading fear and chaos, he threatens to eradicate the kingdom and everyone in it.
On the next One Piece, the Devil's Trap, a Dressrosa extermination plan. I'm gonna be king of the pirates!
The all-out battle of the Colosseum was just the beginning. Now, all of Dressrosa has turned to chaos as a horrifying game of life or death commences. Faced with a difficult situation where the citizens have turned against him, Luffy moves to take down Doflamingo before it's too late.
On the next One Piece, the 500 million buried man. Target, Usoland. I'm gonna be king of the pirates!
Law, Zoro, and Luffy are on the move. The three race for the royal palace with one thing on their mind, to confront Doflamingo. However, they are greeted by the family executives Mark Vice Sr. and Dellinger, and when some rowdy pirates arrive to pick up their bounty, things get even more complicated.
On the next One Piece, breaking through enemy lines, Luffy and Zoro launch the counterattack. I'm gonna be king of the pirates!
Luffy and Zoro have a run-in with Fujitora. As the clash rages on, a tremendous power starts shaking the heavens and earth. It's revealed to be the top executive Pika, finally showing the extent of his strength. With his immeasurable size, he threatens to crush Luffy along with the entire kingdom.
On the next One Piece, with the rumbling of the ground, the god of destruction, giant Pika descends! I'm gonna be king of the pirates!
The colossal Pika comes down hard on Luffy and the island. Accidentally provoking the wrath of the massive foe, Luffy stands up to a level of danger he's never faced before. Now, former enemies become allies to bring down the behemoth before setting their sights on Doflamingo.
On the next One Piece, gathering into a powerful front, Luffy and a group of brutal warriors. I'm gonna be king of the pirates!
Luffy heads to the royal palace with a group of prideful ruffians in tow. However, Pika easily blocks all attempts to break through and get back on course. As things start to look dire after another of Pika's devastating blows, Luffy stands up to him, revealing his stunning ultimate technique.
On the next One Piece, steady progress, Luffy's army versus Pika. I'm gonna be king of the pirates!
Zoro faces off with Pika once again. As the other Straw Hats' confrontations get heated, things get really shaken up once Law airs his true feelings. The shocking truth about his hostile relationship with Doflamingo is finally unveiled.
On the next One Piece, a shocking confession, Law's soulful vow. I'm gonna be king of the pirates!
Luffy continues his advance on the palace, but is soon threatened by a massive force of Marines led by Fujitora. As the enemy begins to close in, one man stands in their way, issuing a fiery challenge. Now the strongest in the Navy and the strongest in the Revolutionary Army face off.
On the next One Piece, a big collision. Chief of Staff Sabo versus Admiral Fujitora. I'm gonna be king of the pirates!
Robin, Rebecca, and Bartolomeo take a ride on Tontata Airlines as they rush to get the handcuff key to Law. Meanwhile, Luffy gets sidetracked on his mad dash to the palace and happens upon a hidden passage. But the would-be shortcut may give him more trouble than he bargained for.
On the next One Piece, a desperate situation. Luffy gets caught in a trap. I'm gonna be king of the pirates!
Trapped inside a well with no room to escape, Luffy is knocked into the water after an assault from Doflamingo. Far from his destination, far from his friends, and unable to free Law from his handcuffs, Luffy bets everything on one giant attack to bring him a last-minute comeback.
On the next One Piece, A Great Escape, Luffy's tide-turning elephant gun. I'm gonna be king of the pirates!
The executives of the Don Quixote family finally enter the fray, starting a full-scale battle with Luffy and the others. When it seems like the palace is out of reach, the ragtag group of allies that Luffy has acquired come together and prove their worth.
On the next One Piece, A United Front, Luffy's breakthrough to the victory. I'm gonna be king of the pirates!
The motley crew of fighters allows Luffy to advance towards the palace. Meanwhile, Kinemon reunites with his long-lost friend Kanjuro, another samurai from the land of Wano. As the duo plans an escape from the underground junkyard, Kanjuro uses a strange power that truly defies explanation.
On the next One Piece, The Second Samurai, Evening Shower Kanjuro appears. I'm gonna be king of the pirates!
Luffy's group is held up by a group of strange dolls as Zoro continues his battle against Pika. Suddenly, the stone giant aims a massive flying fist at Robin and her allies. When it seems like Pika's crushing blow is unavoidable, Zoro unleashes a deadly attack to even the playing field.
On the next One Piece, a hard-fought battle against Pika, Zoro's deadly attack. I'm gonna be king of the pirates!
Finally released from the Smile Factory, the Tontatas can scarcely contain their joy. However, when they're unable to find their missing Princess Mon Cherie, that joy soon turns to worry. Meanwhile, the hard-boiled battle between Frankie and Signor begins anew as Queen leaps into the fray to get her revenge.
On the next One Piece, The Little People's Princess, Captive Mon Cherie. I'm gonna be king of the pirates!
With the aid of her clairvoyance, Violet finally discovers Princess Mon Cherie's location, giving hope to Leo and the other Tontatas. However, Luffy is still held up by the gruesome headcracker dolls, while the battle between the executives and Luffy's allies from the Colosseum rages on.
On the next One Piece, Invincible, a gruesome army of headcracker dolls. I'm gonna be king of the pirates!
Clashing fiercely with Fujitora, Sabo tries to determine his true motives. Meanwhile, Robin, Bartolomeo, and Cavendish do battle with Gladius, having faith that Luffy will push forward and free Law from his handcuffs so that the duo can challenge Doflamingo himself at the Royal Palace.
On the next One Piece, risking their lives, Luffy is the trump card for victory. I'm gonna be king of the pirates!
The top executive Diamante hounds Rebecca relentlessly as she flees for her life. With Luffy still on his way, she's forced to make a desperate final stand. That is, until the undefeated gladiator Kyros appears to settle a very old score.
On the next One Piece, a tearful reunion, Rebecca and Kyros. I'm gonna be king of the pirates!
Sugar approaches Luffy and Law with vengeance in her eyes. Usopp, realizing the severity of the situation, takes action to protect his unsuspecting allies. Taking aim at Sugar from a distance, he places faith in the impossible. The fate of Luffy and Law falls on his sniping skills.
On the next One Piece, One Shot, One Kill, the man who will save Dressrosa. I'm gonna be king of the pirates!
Luffy and Law finally come face to face with Doflamingo. Unfortunately, the two pirates soon fall prey to his cunning provocations. Manipulating Bellamy as a weapon, Doflamingo has Law and Luffy in the palm of his hand. Their only hope is to strike back with everything they've got.
On the next One Piece, anger erupts. Luffy and Law's ultimate stratagem. I'm gonna be king of the pirates!
Pulling off the secret plan, Luffy and Law go on the offensive. However, as Doflamingo's patience runs thin, he launches one overwhelming counterattack after another, backing his opponents into a corner once again. In the midst of their brutal battle, the shocking history of the cold-blooded warlord is revealed at last.
On the next One Piece, a noble family, the true identity of Doflamingo. I'm gonna be king of the pirates! Subscribe, you guys! Join our crew on the One Piece YouTube channel!